Welcome back to Fine Art Diary. Today we'll see how to paint this seashore with a meditating Buddha statue. We are going to see the painting process step by step. So let's get started. The size of the canvas is 24 by 18 inches. And this is the color palette I am using today. Now let's jump into the painting. First of all, I am planning to do a preliminary sketch of my composition, and for this I am mixing a kind of brown color by using raw umber, yellow ochre and a touch of crimson lake. And let's get started. We don't have to be very precise in terms of the brush strokes. Right now I am positioning all the elements in my composition, and that can be done very roughly. Here I am using acrylic color. While doing the sketching, it's always better to add a little more medium to it, so that your brush strokes can be spontaneous without any interruption. You can see in this stage the position of the elements are very important because the composition is going to be the base of the painting, and strokes will be eliminated by the overlapping of the colors. Alright, now let's do the blocking of the sky, and for that I am mixing titanium white and ultramarine blue. Let's add a touch of crimson lake also, and the value of this mixture is quite bright. At the initial stage the brush strokes will be very broad, and towards the end it will be smaller and smaller. I am assuming the key light is coming from the right hand side of the canvas, so the sky towards the right hand side will be much more brighter than the left hand side. Now let's take ultramarine blue and the magentas. My goal is to create a darker color. Now let's do the blocking of the Buddha statue. And you can see still I am using a very broad brush because the blocking stage has to be very spontaneous without any detailing. Now going back to the sky color, and let's extend the sky. Similarly, doing the blocking of a small architecture in this area, and also the taller one. The blocking can be done with some very fast brush strokes because nothing is too precise in this stage, only the appearance of the objects will be there. This side also I am doing the same. Let's add little more blues because towards the left the saturation of the blue can be a little more than the right hand side because the key light is hitting from the right hand side, and the left hand side of the canvas will be much more cooler than the right hand side. Now in the same mixture I have added little more white, and let's paint the rest of the sky. While painting this, at the same time I am already keeping some cloud patterns. Now let's add titanium white to the mixture. I am also adding the blues and the magentas and also crimson lake to it. I wanted to mix a very desaturated violet. Now let's do the block-in of some cloud shapes. Also, let's do the block-in of the seabed. I have decided the painting to be violet dominated to create atmospheric effect. For the sea, I have added little more cobalt blue to it, and how gradually it is coming closer to the camera, it is becoming more violet. Now with the same color mixture, I am doing the block-in of the reflection. Far from the camera, I am mixing my blues, and closer to the camera, I am mixing the magentas. In the block-in stage, you will be able to work wet on wet because you are working very fast. So the color will not be dried and you will have the privilege to blend the colors, which sometimes can be a struggle in acrylic painting. Now let's add yellow ochre to the same mixture and do the block-in of the sand. Now let's divide the shapes of the sky, and for that I am using cobalt blue and titanium white. I am keeping this color quite saturated this time. You can see I have switched to a smaller bristle brush. Round bristle brush can be very helpful to create this kind of blended shapes in acrylic. So whatever the shapes I have created during the block-in, I am trying to exaggerate those and just increasing the contrast a little bit. Now let's add titanium white for a brighter mixture and let's create some brighter shapes in the sky. So right now I am trying to find out the pockets through which the bright light is visible. I am taking lots of time to keep the values correct. That's alright. Now let's add some dark accents in the cloud, and for that I am using cobalt blue and titanium white. With this also, the contrast of the sky will be increased a little bit. In this particular scene, the key light means the sun is very dim, and that is the reason I am not going to create too much contrast anywhere except our focal object. Now let's add titanium white, yellow ochre, and a touch of crimson lake, and made a very warm mixture for our light shapes. This is going to give the hints of the presence of the sun in the sky. Finding some more bright pockets in the sky. The sky is almost done, and you can see now I am adding some tiny detailing to it. That's alright, now it's time to do the blocking of the horizon, and for that I am mixing titanium white with the blues and magentas. It is far from the camera, so it has to be quite desaturated, so I am adding a little bit Payne's grey to it. That's alright. You can see with the help of some brush strokes, I have given the hints of some architecture at a distance. Now let's take a brighter mixture with titanium white, yellow ochre, and medium magenta with a touch of blue. And let's add some hints of the light shapes. So with some random brush strokes, I am dividing the shapes and creating the illusion of many planes over there. That's alright. Now we are going to concentrate on the next architecture, and I think it can be an old temple over there. So I am going to deal with this with three values. First the dark value, then the midtone, and then the highlights. So over here you can see I have mixed my dark value and adding the dark accents to it. At the same time, you must have noticed, while drawing these lines, I am maintaining the perspective also. So this is going to be one of the key factors while painting the architectural buildings. Now let's mix the mid-tone, and basically it is going to be the bounce light. So I'm mixing titanium white and yellow ochre with the same mixture previously we have mixed. So I'm just touching those areas I'm thinking the bounce light can hit. With the same mixture I have added little more titanium white and medium magenta, and now I am painting the light shapes. Still the contrast I have kept very low. As I discussed previously, our focal object will have the maximum contrast. Returning to my dark mixture, and let's add some thin lines to add the detailing of the shikhara of the temple. In the same way, I am adding some highlights by using our lighter mixture. Now with the same concept, I am going to paint the right hand side temple. So I am going to deal with the shadow shapes, the mid-tone and the highlights. The darker mixture is the same what I was using previously, the mixture of the blues and magentas with a touch of titanium white. So first of all, I have added the perspective lines and then given the suggestion of the doors and then gradually the steps. Now with the same mixture, I am adding titanium white, yellow ochre and crimson lake. And let's do the block-in of the lighter side. Also adding more dark accents and breaking the planes even more. Now let's add some highlights. For this, I am mixing medium magenta and titanium white with our previous mixture. With the same concept, I have done the block-in of this pagoda. Just adding some highlights here and there. Alright, now this is the time for the block-in of the Buddha. In this case, I will start with a mid value, then I will paint the dark layer. After that, I will come back to the mid value once again with a couple of layers, and finally I will complete it with the highlights. For this mixture, I have mixed titanium white, medium magenta and cobalt blue. Right now the goal is to find out all the planes which is having mid value, and this is what I am doing right now. While painting the human figure, we have to be very precise. It is not like painting the trees or painting the stones, but each and every area is having its definite shape and anatomy. And while giving the strokes, we need to follow all these things. It is said that Buddha got nirvana, and any time he could enter into moksha, abandoning this material world. But he looked back to the humanity, and it is said after that he decided he will be waiting in this earth only until the last man in this world getting the enlightenment. And I thought to paint this beautiful concept. Here my Buddha rejected the nirvana and waiting for the humanity to attain the enlightenment. I'm done with the mid-tone. Now let's move to the dark values. And for that I'm mixing my blues, deep magenta, crimson lake and a touch of titanium white. Now let's add the dark values. So first of all I'm giving the marks of the facial features, the base of the chin, the base of the nose line, the eyes and the hairline. Now going back to my mid-tone once again and will exaggerate the facial planes a little more. Returning to the dark mixture once again. Now this is going to be the ear, the lip line, the bottom of the lip and the chin. Generally, a human being can be a 6 or 7 head character. I'm measuring the head so that we can figure out the chest line, the navel and the pubic bone. In this case, I found the angle of the elbow. So from the navel, if you are drawing an arc, then it is going to touch the angle of the elbow. Now let's add the highlights, and for this I am mixing titanium white, yellow ochre and medium magenta. Now let's find out all those planes which are getting direct key light. That's alright, now it's time to add some mid-tones, and for that I am mixing deep magenta, cobalt blue, crimson lake and a touch of titanium white. This mid value is towards the darker side and gradually I'll be shifting towards the lighter side. Now it's time to paint a sky bounce. So for that I'm using cobalt blue and titanium white. and let's find the edges where it is getting the bounce light. Now let's make the mixture even more lighter, and for that I am using ultramarine blue, titanium white and a touch of medium magenta to it. Now let's create some highlights where I have added the reflected light. This highlight is also for the sky reflection. Now going back to my dark mixture, and let's create some hair pattern. Going back to my lighter mixture and adding medium magenta to it to create a mid-tone, and now this is the time to blend the highlight with the mid-tone. And you can see I have created a transitional tone between the mid-tone and the highlight, and now I am painting those transitional areas. That's fine. Now let's add some trees at the base, and for that I'm mixing ultramarine blue, raw umber, deep magenta and Payne's grey. Also a touch of yellow ochre, and you can see the mixture is quite dark in this case. Doing the blocking of the trees with some spontaneous brush strokes. Switching to my rigger brush, and let's give the hints of the stems. Now let's mix a lighter value, and for that I am using yellow ochre, deep magenta, cobalt blue, titanium white and cad yellow medium. Now let's find some lighter shapes in the trees. That's alright. Now let's come downward, and this time I am using ultramarine blue, deep magenta, medium magenta, yellow ochre, titanium white and creating a kind of grey mixture. Over here, I am trying to create the illusion as if the local color and the shadow mingling together. And that is the reason the color is grey. Now let's come to the sea. For that I am using cobalt blue, titanium white and medium magenta. And let's start painting. First of all, I will define the horizon and then gradually will come downward. Over here, I am doing the block-in of the shadows of the waves. Very roughly, I will establish some of the wavy patterns. Making the mixture a little more darker and towards the violet, let's mix deep magenta to it. So how it is coming towards the camera, I am adding more magenta to it, because the area closer to the camera will have more violet and the portion far from the camera will have more blue. And right now with this concept I am painting. At the same time, we should consider the local color also. You can see I am designing some wavy patterns over here. Now it's time to add some midtone and sky reflection. So for that I am using cobalt blue, titanium white and a touch of medium magenta. And this time it is quite bright. Now like the sky, I am finding the pockets in the reflection also. You must have noticed I am maintaining a particular direction and pattern. That's fine. Now let's add the highlights to the waves. For that I am mixing titanium white and cobalt blue. Let's start painting. Acrylic painting will have that tendency to be darker after drying. So while painting, we need to assume the correct value, what it is going to be after drying, or we have to come back and need to paint those areas once again with a lighter mixture. So most of the cases it will be a combination. Some parts you need to repaint and some parts you can assume. Over here, one thing you have noticed, the direction of the brush stroke is the direction of the waves. That's alright, now let's come to the foreground. I'm mixing medium magenta, ultramarine blue, titanium white, and a touch of cobalt blue. And I'm mixing a violet color. So once again we'll start with the block-in and then gradually we are going to add the patterns. Connecting the shapes over here. Let's add medium magenta, yellow ochre, and titanium white to it to make the mixture warm and to get the local color of the sand. Let's make the mixture a little darker by adding ultramarine blue, medium magenta, and crimson lake, making the foreground a little more harmonious. Now I am going to mix some mid value to emphasize the ripples even more. So for that I am using cobalt blue, titanium white, and medium magenta. Very randomly I am leaving my strokes here and there, and automatically it will create a kind of pattern. That's alright, now it's time to paint the reflection of the Buddha and the architectural structures. So I am taking my blues, deep magenta and titanium white. So first of all I am going to do the block-in of the reflection. I'll make the bigger shapes and then gradually I'll come to the smaller shapes. So this is going to be the reflection of the bigger structure, and this is going to be the reflection of Buddha. You can see I am trying to create a kind of ripple pattern. The depth of the water is not there, but the sand is wet, and because of that the reflection is created. Doing the same thing over here. So whatever the value I can see in the Buddha, the same value I am trying to replicate in the reflection. This time I have taken the same darker mixture what I used for the shadows of the architectural structures. You must have noticed one thing, how far from the camera the reflection is going back, the ripples are becoming smaller and smaller, and this is because of the perspective, and we should maintain that. Over here I have mixed the same color with cobalt blue and titanium white and created a kind of mid-tone. Over here also I am going to do the same thing. adding some dark accents in this area, what is present in Buddha statue also. Now let's mix the color of the highlight, and for this I am using medium magenta, yellow ochre and titanium white. Let's check it once again. It has to be the vertical reflection of the original shape, otherwise it is not going to look correct. Once again I am going to paint it very randomly with a kind of ripple pattern. The same color I have used for the sky, so I am doing the same in the reflection also. That's alright. Now let's add the highlight for the sky, and for that I am mixing titanium white, cobalt blue and a touch of deep magenta. Let's start painting. This was the lighter side of the sky, so I am replicating the same in the reflection also. And with the help of this light color, we can define the shapes of the architectural buildings. So I am actually painting around those darker shapes. That's alright. Now we are going to paint the lightest light, and for this I am using titanium white, deep magenta and a touch of yellow ochre. And the mixture is quite bright this time. So once again doing the same, finding the highlight in the upper side and replicating the same in the reflection. Now let's give the accent of the lightest light. And for this I am using titanium white and yellow ochre. This is a large painting, and that is the reason I am concentrating on one portion at a time. Adding some highlights in this also. That's alright. Now this is the last part we are going to do. Let's paint a puddle of water in this area so we can directly paint the reflection, and it will give the sense of the water accumulation in this area. Now let's paint some highlights of the sky reflection. I'm using the same colors what I have used for the sky. Now blending both the sides, it should have the same kind of brightness. That's okay. Now it is the time to paint a driftwood in this area. And definitely first of all I am doing the block-in for the same. I have started with a darker tone in this case. That's fine. Now it's the time to paint the shapes of the mid-tone. So now I am breaking the entire object into smaller shapes. Over here we have to remember one thing, the light is coming from the right hand side. Though in this painting the key light is not too hard, but then also we need to maintain the direction of the key light. That's looking fine. Now it's time to paint some bounce lights, and it has to be very cool in tone. It is going to get the color from the environment. Now it's time to re-establish some of the darks. I'm basically trying to get the wood pattern over here, and in this stage we should get the texture of the wood. Now it's time to paint the highlights. For this I am using titanium white, yellow ochre and a touch of medium magenta. Titanium white is for the brightness, yellow ochre is the color of the key light, and medium magenta is the color for the environment. So we are mixing together to get this particular color. So whatever texture we have created previously, I am following those patterns only. Now it's time to paint some reflected light wherever needed. Reflected light will be very similar to the ambient color. That's okay. Now let's add the reflection of this wood. I am using the same color and following the same ripple pattern. Also adding some dark accents. Now let's add some brightest light where the wood is touching the water surface. For this I am using my lighter mixture only, but a little more titanium white. Now I am planning to paint some leaves over here. I will start with the dark tone, then the mid-tone, and then the highlights. Adding some greens in the dark tone. Now this is going to be the mid-tone. These leaves are too close to the ground plane, so the cast shadow will be dark in this case. Now couple of lines for the highlights. That's alright. Now the last element of this painting, some birds. In this case, the blocking I am starting with a mid-tone. In my concept, these birds are carrying some good news for the world. In silence, they are announcing the peace all around. They are carrying the message of the freedom of the soul, which can attain the light being in this world. We are very close towards the end of the painting. In the same way, I have painted some more birds. Alright, so here are some close-ups of the painting. That's all for today. Hope you enjoyed today's session. The open edition print for this painting will be available very soon. You can check the link in the description, and you may subscribe the channel because many more painting video tutorials are coming in future. Thank you very much for watching.